In our headlines on this Wednesday, May 6th, here in South Korea, Donald Trump claims a cargo ship operated by South Korea was attacked by Iran in the Strait of Hormuz this past Monday because it attempted to navigate the waterway alone. Meanwhile, on the local bourse, the benchmark KOSPI soars above the 7,000 mark for the first time in history on this Wednesday as investors appear unfazed by the tensions in the Middle East. And on the local political front, President Lee Jae-myung shares his support for a crucial vote by the National Assembly this coming Thursday that aims to amend the Constitution for the first time in nearly 4 decades. We start with the latest remarks out of the Trump administration regarding tensions in the Middle East. Donald Trump claims a cargo ship operated by South Korea was targeted by Iran earlier on Monday for venturing solo in the Strait of Hormuz. This claim comes as his top foreign affairs official asserts that the U.S.'s offensive operation against Iran is over. Our Chung Hye-rim has the latest.
U.S. President Donald Trump says a South Korean-operated cargo ship that reported an explosion in the Strait of Hormuz was attacked by Iran. Speaking at the White House on Tuesday, Trump said the vessel and other ships had been shot by Iran after deciding to cross the critical waterway alone, adding that ships guarded by the U.S. remained safe. On the same day, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio officially announced that Operation Epic Fury, the offensive phase of the U.S. campaign that began in late February, is over.
Yeah, look, the Operation Epic Fury is concluded. Okay, we're now on to this project of freedom. Now, what's really important for you to report and for everyone to understand is this is not an offensive operation. This is a defensive operation.
However, later on Tuesday, Trump took to social media to say Project Freedom, which includes the U.S. military guiding ships through the Strait of Hormuz, would be paused for a short period. Citing requests from countries like Pakistan and, quote, great progress towards a final agreement with Iran, he said the movement of ships is being halted to see if a deal can be finalized and that the blockade of Iranian ports remain in full effect. The Pentagon also emphasized its expectations for U.S. allies to join the effort on the strait's maritime safety.
We hope South Korea would step up, just like we hope Japan would step up, just like we hope Australia would step up. But the president was clear in his truth message that, hey, this is your ship. You should take part in helping to defend it.
According to experts, Trump's decision to put the brakes on a major defense project could signal that the behind-the-scenes negotiations regarding an end to the war and denuclearization may be making significant progress. Chung Hye-rim, Arirang News.
Well, despite those optimistic observations, Iran for now is moving to tighten its hold over the Strait of Hormuz. Our Eastern J covers this move as well as Tehran's confrontation with the UAE.
Iran has introduced a new system to regulate ship movements through the strategically vital Strait of Hormuz, escalating tensions with the United States over control of the key waterway. According to Press TV on Tuesday, vessels seeking to transit the strait must now follow a framework set by Iran's Persian Gulf Strait Authority. Ships receive instructions via email and are required to comply before being granted a transit permit. The move comes as Iran tightens its grip on maritime traffic through the strait, a critical global energy corridor through which a significant portion of the world's oil supply passes. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, Navy, has warned that only routes authorized by Tehran are considered safe, adding that any deviation could trigger what it called a decisive response. In a statement carried by Iran's Fars news agency on Tuesday, the IRGC Navy said vessels must use corridors previously designated by Iran, and that unauthorized routes should be deemed unsafe. Meanwhile, regional tensions have intensified. The United Arab Emirates said its air defense systems intercepted multiple aerial threats originating from Iran. In a statement posted on X, the UAE Ministry of Defense said explosions heard across parts of the country were the result of intercepting ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and drones. However, Iran has denied carrying out any such attacks. State broadcaster Islamic Republic of Iran Broadcasting cited a military spokesman as saying no missile or drone operations had been launched against the UAE and dismissed the claims as baseless. The spokesman warned that any attack on Iran originating from UAE territory would be met with a decisive and forceful retaliation. He also accused the UAE of allowing U.S. and Israeli forces to operate from its soil, urging Emirati authorities not to become a base for what he described as hostile powers. 이승재, 아리랑 뉴스.
Meanwhile, here in South Korea, the benchmark KOSPI is making history yet again, having pushed past the 7,000 mark just 2 months after hitting above 6,000. Our economics correspondent Kim Jun-hoon covers this latest rally.
Fueled by a relentless rally, Korea's benchmark KOSPI broke through the 7,000 range for the first time ever on Wednesday. According to the Korea Exchange, Wednesday's index finished at 7,384.56, up 6.45% from the previous close. It opened more than 2% higher at 7,093, breaking above the 7,000 mark at the opening bell. The breakthrough came just over 2 months after the KOSPI first topped the 6,000 mark intraday in late February. The rally gained further momentum early in the session, surging into the 7,300 range and triggering a buy-side sidecar that temporarily halted program buying for 5 minutes. The index later climbed as high as 7,426.6, briefly moving above the 7,400 level as well. In particular, the KOSPI's total market capitalization surpassed 6,000 trillion won, approximately $4 trillion for the first time ever, increasing more than 1,000 trillion won in just about 3 months. Semiconductor heavyweights Samsung Electronics and SK hynix were among the main drivers behind the gains, with both closing more than 10% up. Relief over easing tensions in the Middle East helped push global oil prices lower, while positive momentum from Wall Street carried over into the local market overnight, with all 3 major U.S. indexes closing higher on gains in big tech stocks.
Recent first-quarter earnings from major U.S. big tech companies came in far stronger than expected, fueling fresh rallies in tech stocks. As concerns over AI profitability fade, investors are increasingly betting that rising capital spending will deliver major gains for semiconductor makers.
There's also analysis that the strength of the semiconductor sector is helping shield Korea's market from broader economic uncertainty. While oil shocks once pushed the country into trade deficits, chip exports are now offsetting much of the rise in energy import costs, helping keep the market resilient despite geopolitical tensions. Market watchers are increasingly seeing the Korean stock market as entering a phase of structural growth rather than a temporary rally. As semiconductors continue to lead the rally, many believe there is still room to move higher. Kim Jun-hoon, 아리랑 뉴스.
Also on the local front, inflation rose 2.6% on year in April as prices of petroleum products soared almost 22%. Our Yoon-jin has more.
The Ministry of Data and Statistics said on Wednesday that the Consumer Price Index for April rose 2.6% from a year earlier. On a monthly basis, prices increased 0.5%, while the annual inflation rate saw its sharpest increase in 21 months. After showing a downward trend at 2.3% in December last year, then 2% in January and February, the consumer price growth rate rose to 2.2% in March following the breakout of the Middle East war and jumped another 0.4 percentage points last month. Petroleum prices surged 21.9%, driving up the overall inflation rate and more than doubling the pace of increase from the previous month. Consequently, overall industrial products rose 3.8%, recording the highest growth rate since February 2023. However, the government saw that the implementation of an oil price cap system and fuel tax cuts, in fact, lowered the overall inflation rate by 1.2 percentage points. A senior official from the Data Ministry said that if petroleum prices had risen further, it would have had a greater impact on consumer prices. Further, impact was seen in the increase of fuel surcharges, causing international airfare to skyrocket from the 0.8% increase in the previous month to 15.9% in April, which is likely to rise further in May. Overseas group travel expenses also saw significant upward pressure of 11.5%. Automobile repair costs and engine oil replacement fees rose substantially as well, 4.8% and 11.6% respectively. Meanwhile, dining table prices fell significantly as agricultural, livestock, and fisheries prices fell 0.5%, marking the second consecutive monthly decline. The fall was largely due to a 12.6% drop in vegetable prices amid favorable weather conditions. As uncertainties persist, the government plans to maintain a firm stance on price stability across all government agencies to minimize price uncertainty caused by external volatility, such as the Middle East war. 이은진, 아리랑 뉴스.
President Lee Jae-myung has shared his support for a parliamentary vote scheduled to take place on Thursday aimed at amending the constitution. Our Blue House correspondent Song Yu-jin reports.
An amendment that there is no reason to oppose. That's how President Lee Jae-myung described the constitutional amendment bill ahead of a National Assembly vote on Thursday.
1987년에 현행 헌법이 제정된 이후 대한민국이 정치, 경제, 사회 여러 측면에서 참으로 큰 변화를 겪었습니다. 그런데 헌법은 여전히 지난 40여 년 동안 제자리 걸음입니다.
Chairing a cabinet meeting on Wednesday, Lee said constitutional amendments should move forward step by step, starting with changes that have public and bipartisan support. The centerpiece of the amendment bill, jointly backed by 187 lawmakers from the ruling Democratic Party and 5 minor parties, is tighter parliamentary control over martial law. A president declaring martial law would need approval from the National Assembly within 48 hours. Otherwise, the measure would automatically lose effect. Currently, even if lawmakers vote to demand its lifting, the president still has the final authority to formally revoke it, leaving room for delays. In former President Yoon Suk-yeol's case in 2024, it took more than 3 hours.
계엄 상황도 아닌데 불법적으로 정권 유지를 목적으로 또는 사이익을 목적으로 계엄을 선포해서 군대를 통해서 나라를 망치면서 독재를 하겠다. 이런 것을 못하게 하는 게 당연한 거 아닌가요?
The proposed amendment would also add the 1980 May 18th Gwangju democratization movement and the 1979 Busan-Masan democratic protests to the Constitution's preamble. The current preamble only references the April 19th revolution of 1960 in recognizing Korea's democratic history. If approved by the National Assembly, the amendment could be put to a national referendum alongside the local elections on June 3rd. And with less than a month left until the local elections, the president called on his cabinet to remain vigilant, saying voters must be able to make informed decisions.
선거인들이 자유롭게 선거에 관한 후보에 관한 정보를 수집하고 그 정보에 의해서 합리적인 판단을 할 수 있도록 하는 것은 정부의 가장 큰 책무라고 생각이 됩니다.
He specifically warned against smear campaigns, vote buying, and unlawful interference by public officials.
Regarding these 3 major election crimes, President Lee ordered relevant authorities to respond swiftly and firmly. 송유진, 아리랑 뉴스.
And the ruling Democratic Party has reappointed Byung-do as its floor leader. Now, this marks the first time in party history that the position has been held in consecutive terms. Han was confirmed during a party caucus at the National Assembly on this Wednesday after securing the majority in an uncontested vote. He will lead parliamentary strategy through May 2027. Han previously assumed the position in a by-election in January following the resignation of his predecessor. South Korea says it's pursuing a phased and practical approach to North Korea's denuclearization. Speaking at a UN panel event in New York on the sidelines of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty review process, Seoul officials stressed flexibility in engaging Pyongyang while warning of the regime's advances in nuclear weapons and missile capabilities as it deepens military ties with Russia. South Korea also underscored the importance of strict sanctions enforcement, highlighting the role of a new multinational monitoring team after the UN expert panel's mandate expired. In related news, amid mounting speculation over a potential resumption of diplomacy between the U.S. and North Korea, a leading U.S. scholar says talks to tackle Pyongyang's nuclear ambitions require a realistic approach. Our foreign affairs correspondent Oh Soo-young covers his thoughts.
Talks with North Korea should start with risk reduction rather than immediate denuclearization, cooling tensions to avoid a nuclear war. That's according to Victor Cha, Korea chair at the Center for Strategic and International Studies and former deputy head of the U.S. delegation to the six-party talks. In a recent foreign affairs article, Cha makes a case for seeking cold peace with North Korea.
The idea behind the cold peace is that we're much better off avoiding the chances of a hot nuclear war with North Korea and trying to open a cold peace. And the cold peace doesn't completely negate the goal of denuclearization, but acknowledges that it's not something that's going to happen anytime soon when North Korea has 50 nuclear weapons and, is fast on their way to building many, many more.
After decades of policy centered on putting denuclearization first, Cha says the priority should instead be lowering the risk of nuclear escalation.
Arms control would be the idea that we're not going to get denuclearization with North Korea anytime soon, but we could try to negotiate a reduction in the number of missiles that they're deploying, in particular long-range ballistic missiles, an end to testing of whether it's nuclear weapons or ballistic missiles, a ban on production of additional weapons-grade fissile material, and a non-proliferation pledge that North Korea would not proliferate to other countries.
But how to get North Korea on board is the question, even if US President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un resume their talks, which have stalled since 2019. Sanctions pressure has weakened, with China and Russia no longer fully enforcing restrictions, while the war in Ukraine has led to deeper military cooperation with Moscow.
As part of a cold peace strategy, the United States would have to think of ways to try to sever that link, because that tie between Russia and North Korea is most likely giving North Korea the capabilities to pose an even greater threat to the U.S. homeland with more capable intercontinental ballistic missiles, as well as potentially nuclear submarines.
Cha says that seeking cold peace with North Korea would not mean weaker deterrence. Seoul, Washington and Tokyo would still expand their missile defense system and deepen defense industrial cooperation, while maintaining clear consequences if North Korea uses nuclear weapons. With growing speculation over Trump's North Korea diplomacy, a White House official said on Monday that there is no North Korea-US summit currently scheduled during the president's Asia trip this month. But Washington remains open to dialogue without any preconditions. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
South Korea's tourism ministry is bolstering its financial support for the tourism industry. The ministry has allocated 200 billion won, or almost $140 million to its tourism loan program via the recently passed supplementary budget. This allocation includes some $20 million to support tourism startups younger than 7 years old. Separately, the ministry will also offer discounts on train tickets for foreign tourists through early next month in collaboration with travel platform Klook to boost regional tourism. In other news now, outdoor parenting in the form of hiking is gaining much traction among mothers and fathers here. Our Cho Young-eun tells us why.
Children take careful steps on their own while parents carry younger babies up the mountain in carriers. Parents often check on their babies through small mirrors attached to the carriers, ensuring they're safe and comfortable. Along the way, parents encourage one another, creating a supportive atmosphere.
My baby weighs about 15 kilograms, so he's quite heavy. But as my stamina improves, I'm able to carry my baby more.
We go out 2 or 3 times a week. I used to go to indoor programs, but now I prefer being outside. There are many different courses, so it never feels repetitive.
The group moves at a slower pace, making frequent stops to care for the children or take short breaks for diverse sensory experiences. Being in nature goes beyond a simple hobby, offering developmental benefits for their children. While interacting with other families helps children build social skills. For parents, the activity has also helped ease feelings of isolation and postpartum depression. Once seen as an individual leisure activity, hiking is now being redefined by young parents. It is quickly becoming an enjoyable routine for the entire family, offering a unique way to balance between exercise and childcare. The trend is also reflected in the rapid growth of related communities, surpassing 2,000 members just a year and a half after its launch. Won-ju, the founder of the community and a mother of a 26-month-old, first began her journey when she noticed she was showing more signs of exhaustion than joy when parenting at home.
More than promoting outdoor parenting, I want to share the idea that mothers can continue to live as themselves, before and after childbirth, while raising their babies.
What begins as a simple hike is gradually evolving into a broader culture movement, one that blends physical activity, community, and parenting. 조영은, 아리랑 뉴스.
This is The World Now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. The World Health Organization now suspects the deadly hantavirus spreading aboard a luxury cruise ship in the Atlantic may have passed from person to person. Such transmission is a rare development for a disease that normally spreads only through infected rodents. 7 cases in total have been confirmed or suspected. Of the 7, 3 people have died, a Dutch couple and a German national. Also, a British passenger evacuated from the vessel is in intensive care in South Africa, and 2 crew members require urgent medical attention. The Dutch-flagged ship MV Hondius is currently moored off Cape Verde, which has refused to allow the remaining 150 passengers ashore. 2 medical evacuation planes are now reportedly en route. Meanwhile, the Spanish Health Ministry confirmed on Tuesday it will receive the ship in the Canary Islands, quote, in accordance with international law and humanitarian principles. In Ukraine, Russian strikes killed at least 27 people across the country's east on Tuesday, hours before a Ukrainian ceasefire proposal was set to take effect at midnight. The worst attack killed 12 in the city of Zaporizhia. Ukraine had called for an open-ended halt to fighting starting at midnight, urging Russia to follow. Russia instead announced only a brief pause for May 8th and 9th to coincide with its World War II victory commemorations in Moscow. President Vladimir Zelensky rejected Moscow's proposal, saying that Russia just wanted a pause for its military parade while still pounding Ukraine with missiles and drones. In the U.S., stars turned up barely recognizable at Monday's Met Gala in New York. Beyoncé made her first Met Gala appearance in 10 years as one of its co-chairs. Bad Bunny disguised himself as an elderly man, Heidi Klum turned up as the Statue of Liberty, and Madonna arrived with a ship on her head. Outside the gala, protesters held signs spelling out "Tax the Rich," targeting Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, who sponsored the event for the first time. Bezos donated a reported $10 million to the event, which led to calls for a boycott over wealth inequality and workers' rights. Chu Ji-hyun, 아리랑 뉴스.
It's felt warm today under clear skies, but tomorrow rain will move in, bringing slightly cooler temperatures. And after the rain, temperatures will gradually trend upwards again. Showers are expected across central regions from tomorrow afternoon into the evening, but we'll only see around 5 millimeters for the Seoul metropolitan area and inland Gangwon-do province, and less than 5 millimeters in Chungcheong-do province. As for temperatures, Seoul will start the day at 12 degrees Celsius, Chuncheon at 10 degrees, Busan at 13 degrees. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will get up to 19 degrees, Chuncheon at 21 degrees, Daegu at 27 degrees. Temperatures will briefly dip with the rain, but once it clears, we'll see bright skies and mild spring weather through the weekend. Now here's a look at the weather around the world.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up right after this break is our daily panel session, and today we touch upon South Korea's birth rate and more. Do stay with us. Thank you for now.